Hey everyone, I'm Liz Fairy and welcome back to my channel. This week's project is this adorable tiny amigurumi cat. Some things you'll need for this tutorial are a crochet hook, I'm using a size E, a pair of scissors, some stitch markers, I'm going to use these bobby pins, a yarn needle, some pins, yarn for the body color, I'm going to use this gray yarn from Red Heart Super Saver, a yarn for the nose and toes color, I'm going to use this black yarn from Red Heart brand. You'll also need some fiber fill to stuff your doll. I just found out about this black fiber fill from Michaels that I used for my black cat, and I used the white fiber fill for my white cat. For this gray cat, I'm going to try mixing the two together to make a gray filling. I'm going to use some craft wire to make a skeleton for the doll to help it keep its shape, and I'll use these little 3mm green glass beads to make the eyes. You could also use safety eyes or embroider on the eyes with thread to make it safer if you're making it for a child. I just love the lifelike quality these add to the kitty's eyes, so I'll be using these glass beads since mine won't be for a child anyway. To sew on the beads, I'm going to use a needle and some black thread, which I'll also use to make the whiskers. You can find a written pattern for this project in my Ravelry store at the link in the description. First, I'll create a magic circle with 6 stitches of single crochet. If you want a more detailed explanation on how to make a magic circle, check out my magic circle tutorial at the link in the description. If you want to make this easier, you could just use one color for the face and embroider on the nose later. But I want to make the nose using a color change instead. So first I'll single crochet 2 times into my magic circle using the main body color before changing colors. This won't be like a normal color change though, where you leave the stitch open and finish the stitch with the loop of the new color, so go ahead and finish the stitch completely. Do not finish with a loop of the new color. Next, pull up a loop of the nose color in the magic circle. Then immediately change colors back by finishing the stitch with a loop of the body color. And this will create a little heart-shaped nose at the center of the face. Now single crochet the remaining 3 stitches into the magic circle and close the magic circle. Now I'll orient the face of the doll as though the magic circle is the front of the doll's nose, with the beginning and the end of the row counting as the bottom of the doll's head, the middle of the row counting as the top of the doll's head, and the sides of the row counting as the sides of the doll's head. Next, I'll single crochet for 1 row to elongate the nose. Now I'm going to begin to increase 6 times per row for 2 rows. In row 1 of increase, I'll increase every stitch since I have just 6 stitches in the row. To increase, I'll simply single crochet 2 times into the same stitch. And I'll do that for every stitch of the row. In the next row of increase, I'll once again increase 6 times throughout the row. That means I'll increase every second stitch, since I have 12 stitches in the row. So single crochet into the first stitch, then increase the second stitch with 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. And repeat that throughout the row. Now I've finished decreasing for now. Next I'll single crochet for 2 rows to elongate the head. In this next row, I need to make the ears. First, I'll single crochet 7 until I get to where the ears will go. I'm going to work the ears into the front loop of the next stitch only, leaving the back loop free to count as a stitch in the next row. Also, none of the stitches I'm about to make in the ear will count as a stitch in the next row, only the back loop of the stitch will count in the next row, so just keep that in mind. Now I'm finished with 7 single crochets and I've gotten to where the ears will go. Now into just the front loop of the next stitch, I'll create the ear. Half double crochet 2, then chain 2, and slip stitch into the second chain from the hook to create the tip of the ear. Then half double crochet 2 more into the same front loop to make the other side of the ear. Just to make sure I remember to skip all the stitches of the ear and work into the back loop of the ear in the next row, I'm going to mark all the stitches I just made in the ear. I'll also mark the back loop I left free behind the ear. And I'll do the same thing when I make the other ear. Next, I'll continue working into the stitches in between the ears. Into both loops of the stitch this time, I'll single crochet 4. Then into the front loop only of the next stitch, I'll repeat what I just did in the other front loop to make the next ear. Half double crochet 2, chain 2 and slip stitch into the second chain from the hook, then half double crochet 2 more into the same front loop to finish the ear. And once again, I'll make note of each back loop that I left at the back of the ear, since they will count as a stitch in the next row, and again, none of the stitches of the ear will count as a stitch in the next row. Now single crochet in the remaining 5 stitches of the row. Next, I'll single crochet for 1 row, skipping all the stitches of both the ears and single crocheting instead into the back loop that I left behind each ear. So single crochet 7, skip all the stitches of the first ear, then single crochet into the back loop behind the first ear. Single crochet 4 into the stitches in between the ears, then skip all the stitches of the other ear, and single crochet into the back loop behind the ear. Then single crochet into the last 5 stitches of the row. Now I'll decrease the head for 2 rows, 6 times per row. In the first row of decrease, decrease every second stitch. So first I'll single crochet into the first stitch. Then to decrease, I'll insert my hook into the front loops of the next 2 stitches, pull up a loop through both, and single crochet to decrease. Then I'll repeat that throughout the row. Before creating my second row of decrease, I'll add fiber fill to the head. In the second row of decrease, I'll decrease every stitch. Now at the end of the row, slip stitch to the first stitch to end the row. Cut off a long tail to sew the hole at the back of the head closed, tack down the ears, and to attach the head to the body later. If you want, before making the body, make a wire skeleton with a 2 1/4 inch neck, a 1 1/2 inch back, 2 2-inch arms, 2 2-inch legs, and a 5-inch tail to add to the body. This will help the doll maintain its shape. Make sure to create a wire loop at the end of each leg and at the end of the neck and the tail. If you want a more in-depth explanation for how I make wire skeletons for my dolls, check out my wire skeleton tutorial at the link in the description. Now let's make the body. Begin by creating a slip knot, then chain 6 and join in a ring with a slip stitch. This slip stitch will now count as the first single crochet stitch of the row. In this row, I want to increase every second stitch so that I end up increasing 3 times throughout the row. So I'll increase the next stitch by single crocheting 2 times into that stitch. Then I'll continue to increase every second stitch until the end of the row. Now I'll single crochet for 2 more rows. In the next row, I'll increase 3 times throughout the row again to gradually widen the body. This time I'll increase every 3rd stitch. Then single crochet for 2 more rows. And in the next row, once again, increase 3 times throughout the row. This time increase every 4th stitch. However, in this row, I'll add the wire skeleton. First, single crochet 2, Then I'll take the wire skeleton and place the wire neck of the skeleton through the hole at the top of the body, where I'll sew the head on later. Then place the left arm skeleton over the next stitch and single crochet into the next stitch over the arm skeleton. Into the next stitch, single crochet 2 to increase that stitch. Single crochet 3, then increase the 4th stitch. Single crochet 3, then I'll place the right arm skeleton over the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch over the arm skeleton, and then to increase that stitch, single crochet 1 more into the same stitch. Now I'll work the remainder of the doll around the skeleton. Next, I'll single crochet for 2 more rows. Now I'll increase 3 times throughout the row again. This time I'll increase every 5th stitch. Now I'm done with gradually increasing the body. Now I want to create a little bump at the back of the body with a larger increase. This time at just the back of the body, I'm going to increase 6 times. So single crochet 6, then increase 6 times, and then single crochet in the last 6 stitches of the row. Now I'm going to single crochet for 1 row, but in this row I'll work around the wire skeleton legs. Single crochet 2, and then place the left leg skeleton over the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch over the leg skeleton, then I'll single crochet 19 until I get to where the next leg goes. Now I'll place the right leg skeleton over the next stitch and then single crochet into the next stitch over the leg skeleton. Then single crochet into the last stitch of the row. At this point, you could also add some fiber fill to the body. Now I'm going to decrease 6 times throughout the row for 3 rows to end the body. In the first row of decrease, I'll decrease every 3rd stitch, and I'll work the row around the wire skeleton tail. So single crochet 2, then decrease 1. And repeat that 2 more times until I get to where the tail should go. So I've decreased every 3rd stitch 3 times so far. Now I'll place the tail skeleton over the next stitch, and single crochet into the next stitch over the tail skeleton. Then single crochet into the next stitch, and decrease the next stitch, and continue to decrease every third stitch until the end of the row. Now I'll just decrease for 2 more rows. In the next row, decrease every second stitch, and in the last row, decrease every stitch of the row. Slip stitch to the first stitch to end the row, cut off a long tail to sew the hole at the back closed later. Now let's make the legs. I started with a magic circle with 6 stitches of single crochet. I used my gray yarn for the first 3 stitches of the row, then changed colors to black for the last 3 stitches to make little black feet pads on the bottom of each leg. Then I changed colors back to gray to make the rest of the leg. Then I simply single crocheted for 6 more rows. At the end of 6 rows, I slip stitch to the first stitch to end the row and cut off a long tail to sew the leg to the body later. Now I just need to make 3 more legs. Next, I'll make the tail. Begin by creating a slip knot and chain 11 for the foundation chain. Chain 1 more to count as the first stitch of the row. I'll mark the first stitch with a bobby pin, and I'll also mark the second chain from the hook, so that I can keep track of where the first chain of the foundation chain is. Slip stitch in the third chain from the hook and into the next 5 chains. Single crochet into the next 3 chains, then increase the last chain by single crocheting 5 times into the same chain. And I'm going to mark the third stitch of these 5 stitches that I just made so that I know where to increase the next row. Now I'll turn the work and single crochet into the other side of the next 3 chains. Then, to finish the row, slip stitch into the remaining 7 chains. Now I'm going to make 1 more row to widen the tail. So I'll chain 1 to count as the first stitch of the row, single crochet into the third chain from the hook, and then single crochet into the next 10 stitches. Increase the next stitch by single crocheting 5 times into the same stitch. Now turn the work and single crochet into the next 12 stitches. Chain 1 to end the row, cut off a long tail of yarn and use the end to sew the tail together, then sew the tail to the doll body. Before I sew the whole thing together, I'll use some pins to place all the pieces where they go on the body. Then I sewed everything together using a ladder stitch, starting with sewing the tail together. Next, attach the head to the body. I also sewed the head into shape a little bit, pulling in a space at the front to make a hollow for the eyes. You can see more on this technique in my doll face shaping tutorial. Then I'll just finish sewing all the legs on, making sure that the little feet are facing the back of the body. Also, if you like, you can sew through the wire loop at the end of each leg and at the top of the head and the tail if you want to fasten the skeleton to the inside of the body to make sure that it doesn't wander out of place. Finally, I'll add the eyes. You can use thread or embroidery floss to embroider on the eyes or use safety eyes. I'm going to sew on these seed beads, though, into the space that I just made for the eyes at the front of the face. And I used the same black thread to add whiskers to the sides of the face. Basically, I'm just going to sew through the inside of the head to fasten the stitches and leave the tail ends of the thread out on the outside where I want the whiskers to go. And now my kitty doll is finished. I also made a couple more in other colors. I think it would be cool to try making a striped cat or a calico. The possibilities are endless. Which one of these three is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you made a project using this or any of my designs, I'd love to see it. You can find my social media links in the description below, or tag me on Instagram at LizFairy. If you liked this video, you could press the like button or share it on social media, and if you'd really like to help out the channel, you can donate to my Patreon. You can get some cool perks from Patreon, like seeing my videos early and ad-free. You can find out more about that at patreon.com/fairyrings. So far on the channel, I've made a unicorn, a deer, a dragon, and now a cat, in this same style. What kind of animal should I try making next? Leave your suggestions in the comments and make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get notifications every time I post. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!